Hi, I'm Carly of gnarlycarleygaming, and welcome back to my table where I geek out over games. Today I will be covering a game currently with crowdfunding on Kickstarter. Today I'm going to talk about Floe. And this game is crowdfunding. It's not out yet. So the publisher sent it my way as well as compensation for providing coverage. When choosing to do previews like this and take on these games that aren't out to showcase my thoughts on them, I'm very picky with what I choose. For one, I value bringing joy to my own game table, so I really want to pick the games that I think are going to be hits for me. And this one was no exception. It comes with a packed out list of artists and designers that are very well regarded in the industry. And what the game promised was a map-filled adventure with a little bit of a Euro game style crunch in terms of asymmetric player abilities and resource tracks. And so all of this world together really appealed to me. And so I was really keen to give it a go. And so I agreed to do so. And in this video, what I set out to do is to give a broad game overview for you all, as well as to break down who I think this game really is for, and then maybe who it's not for, as you weigh maybe whether or not you're interested in backing this title. So what is Floe all about? Floe is a competitive strategy, adventure-filled game that is all about determining who at the table is the most badass adventurer. Each player takes on the role of a hero that has a really cute, trusty familiar at its side. They set out by foot and sea on adventures across an icy terrain together in order to gather resources, fight battles, and have critical encounters to secure their legacy. The game will come to a close when any player gets 6 points throughout their journey. That player will get an extra half-point boost, and then all players will get to play one more round. After that, there'll be some endgame scoring objectives players can score, and then whoever has the most points is deemed the boldest and the bravest adventurer in the bunch. Gameplay rotates between players, each taking a turn, and on their turn, they will either go out in adventures on the big map of the game board, or they'll head off to take actions in their village. If exploring a map, a player will first set off with their hero. Their hero can set off by foot and walk across shallow waters to get where they'd like to go, or else they can choose to snag a boat and sail the seas. In either case, once they arrive where they'd like to go, which will be a different iceberg on the board, they can do one of 5 major things. They can explore, which is just gathering resources off the board around them. They can hop into a cave nearby where they'll have a chance to fight monsters and get different rewards. They can delve into landmarks that are discovered on the board and unlock new special abilities. Or they can have encounters, which there are full decks of that offer various adventures, bonuses, and rewards for little side quests. And lastly, they can discover new lands. This can earn them some points along the way, but it also reveals new parts of the map, along with more and more resources for players to hoover up as the game goes on. And your little buddy, your familiar, can help too. After your hero action in a map turn, your familiar can go out into the shallow waters adjacent to you and do other actions for you. They'll either get to explore, and they can explore the ocean waters or any surrounding icebergs that they can reach from that shallow water spot, or they can even have encounters for you, getting you some of those cool bonuses and side quests. And so it's a little supplementary buddy that can help you reach the edges of where you'd like to go and best efficiently move through the waters to get what you'd like to get out of this adventure. But the world here is a cold one, and this cold world will deplete you and your buddy over time. Every step your adventurer takes and your choice to let your familiar do a supplement action costs warmth that will be drained off a warmth track on your individual player board. As this exhausts, you won't be able to move any further. And so while you could stand still and be there for your turn or not have your familiar fetch things, eventually you're going to want to return to the village to warm up. But a village action is not all bad news. It's not a turn that's just like a full reset and heat up. Instead, it offers its own abundance of actions that I would argue is really the core of this game. When you return to the village, much like the map actions, you and your buddy will still get to take turns. First you, and then your friend. However, unlike the map, you don't need to expend warmth here, and in fact, the villagers around will warm you up. When you choose which of the 5 action spaces you want to go to, any number of villagers there will add warmth to your board. So if there's 2 villagers on a space and I pop over, then I'll get 2 warmth, and then they'll scurry about to other locations. After the villagers leave, then you will get to take the action on that village location. Each of these actions largely has to do with the resource tracks on your individual player boards, particularly the 4 with flow stones on them. The track itself tracks how many of each of the key resources you have and can have. These are certain items that you would go out and adventure for. So right now I can gain 1 pearl, but if I were to gain another, the flow stone here would block it. Pushing these stones up will allow you to collect more resources in the future, but it's also a whole lot more than that. I had already said that there's 5 village actions, and there are 4 of these resource tracks with the flow tokens on them. Well, 4 of the 5 village actions all correspond to one of these resources. And what you do when you go to that space is you pay that maximum amount of that resource that you can have at any time. So to start the game, each of these tracks, you can get up to 1 of each of those resources. When you have that maximum, you can go take an action at that space, spending all of that resource and bumping up the flow stone. For the example with my pearls, that would now allow me to have 2 pearls, which is great if I want to go out and adventure and spend more, but also if I come back with 2 pearls, I could then take that pearl action again and continue to bump that flow stone up and up and up. But why keep bumping up this flow stone and spending those resources? Well, for each of the resources, you get a bonus unique to that resource. So for the resource pearl and that flow track, whenever I bump it up and take that village action, I get to go to the shop and get an item. These are things that trick out your adventurer and make them largely more battle ready. So when they delve into the cave and fight monsters, or go out and about, or maybe even set sail, they have special abilities and special weapons that will help them be successful. Additionally, as a player pushes up these tracks, they unlock little shield symbols called merits that come in different colors. Now, these have a lot of different effects. Sometimes they can contribute to special endgame scoring. And another thing that they can do is also help upgrade your items. Each item has merits it cares about. So for instance, for the pearl ring, if I got 2 yellow merits, I'd be able to upgrade it to a stronger version of the same item. So that combos well with the pearl track. I could get the pearl ring, bump up the pearl track, and then maybe eventually unlock those 2 yellow merits to flip it up. Getting all of those extra bonuses to kind of level up your adventure and make you better at adventuring in the future are awesome, and getting merits give you a nice little boost. But really the important part of these tracks is at the top. Once you get your flow stone all the way to the top of the track, when you go out adventuring again, you can place one of them in what is called a flow shrine. It's just a little circle on the board with like an upgrade symbol in it, but you can place it on the board. And when you do that, you reveal on your board a point symbol, the little flow, and that means you actually get to go ahead and score a full point. So each of these tracks can get you a point, that's 4 points, and it is 6 to win. So this is one of the big mechanisms that drive the core of the game, is getting all those resources. You have to go out and explore, you have to adventure, but you have to come back and fuel them into this engine. You have to keep boosting and boosting and boosting up these tracks so that you can put those out there and finally score. So the Pearl resource gets you item cards, makes you a cooler adventurer. Great. The other tracks all do different things for your adventurer. The fern symbol, which looks like a little fire to me and corresponds well, lets you go to the tavern and you get to pick a tavern card that will always boost your capacity for warmth, so you can earn more warmth and take more warmth out on the go with you, as well as give you the choice of 1 or 2 other bonuses listed on that card. You can spend mushrooms at a hot spring, and this gets you an ally card. This is probably my favorite of any of the actions. Allies all have things they want you to do. Usually it's stuff they want you to get or places they want you to go, and when you do those things, they give you more stuff. So for instance, I could have an ally that wants me to get a crate, and when I do, I will get 2 potion bottles. And if you're like, Carly, you've never mentioned crates or potion bottles before, this game has a ton of crap in it, a lot of stuff. You go out and you find so much stuff. So crates, just for instance, give you 1 of 2 random resources. You pull a crate every time you get a crate, you see what you find in it. All of the stuff, potions, crates, maps, crystals, I won't have time to talk about all of it, but all of it is stuff that helps boost you. So allies are like, go get this thing that helps boost you and I'll boost you more. But also, whenever you get an ally, before you do anything for them, they'll give you a secret objective for endgame. You'll get to draw 2 and pick one of them. You can only have up to 4, but those are all things that score well and above and beyond when someone triggers 6 points. So though I might trigger 6 points and get an extra half-point boost, maybe your secret objectives bring you to the top. For this reason, allies are really powerful, and so you can only have 1 at a time. Additionally, they're extra powerful because while they give you a secret objective and more ways to score at the end of the game, they also give you a way to increase your score in-game. If you ever reach the end of an ally card, achieving all of their wants in sequential order, at the end of it, there's a little symbol that will always give you half a point. This game really likes half points. Floes and placing them in flow shrines is really the only way you're getting a full point in this game. Otherwise, it's a lot of half points. And on your player board, there's a little half point marker, and you flick it down when you get half a point, flick it up when you get another one, and then mark yourself up on the main board. And so allies give you another way to get that half point, to work towards being that best adventurer. The last of the village spaces that have to do with resources is the one for wood. And this is where our little familiar friend comes back in again. Because whenever we get to take one of these village space actions, at the end of our turn, our familiar also gets an action, and it has to do with the houses that we haven't built next to our player board. Essentially, each house has a top and a bottom, and you either place your familiar on the top or on the bottom, and they get to do all of the actions listed on the top or the bottom. And so the wood action, what that does is it allows you to build an extra house next to them. Basically meaning every single time you go to the village and get your familiar to do one of those top or bottom actions, they're doing more for you. So that's one that I usually like to do early in the amount of times that I play, just because it means every single time I'm going to the village, I'm getting that kickback from my familiar. So that right there is the core of Floe. Those 4 village spaces all push up those flow stones, and when you get them out on the board, they are points for you, 4 potentially out of 6 points. The last village space, the space that doesn't have to do with these resource tracks specifically, has to do with spending crystals. Now, crystals are a resource you can find across the board and explore and gather, but usually you find them delving into caves and fighting monsters. The deeper you go into caves, the more crystals you get, and these resources are very powerful. So when you go to this last village spot, you can spend them in a variety of ways. You can use them to upgrade your character's asymmetric abilities. You can actually use them in place of other resources to upgrade their flow tracks. So for instance, if I needed 3 mushrooms in order to boost up its flow track, I could do 3 crystals instead when I visit this space. And lastly, you can spend 3 crystals just to get half a point outright. You can only do each of those actions once, and you can only ever have 6 crystals at a time, so you can't just stockpile and get a ton of half points. But still, it's a very powerful action space. It kind of serves as the wild action space, as well as gives you that half points boost and that character boost. So really in this game, your hero and familiar are on a journey. Well, kind of many journeys, because you go out and then you come back and you spend your resources, and you go out and you come back and you spend your resources. And I really found it critical to delve into all of the village action spaces, specifically because they're so much the core of the game. But I really have just scratched the surface in terms of what the map offers in explorations. You're probably wondering how you go into the caves and fight monsters and what that looks like. There's dice involved, but I'm not going to go through all of that crucially. I'll kind of give you a light overview of it. For instance, should you take a ship and set sail, you can spend maps in order to gain points or new encounters. Encounters are lovely cards that can give players side quests to pull off for bonuses. And the whole cave system that I barely will get to touch on offers the chance to roll dice and battle monsters, spending potions to help boost your brawn and protect yourself. And successfully doing so, as I said before, can earn you crystal and new endgame scoring cards, and even sometimes half points. But really, Floe is the name of the game, and there's so many adventures that await you on the board, but it all really comes back to this player board and your Floe tracks, in my opinion. And if you're feeling the overwhelm of options of what to do on the board, don't worry. I think the game kind of gives you a good guide along the way. What you might do is you might decide, hey, it sounds fun to fight a monster, so you delve into cave, have a battle, and you're successful on the easy level of monsters, and it gives you a secret objective that requires that you discover 3 new lands across the board. So then you spend your next turn trying to get a map so that you can afford to discover a land. Maybe you already have an ally that you acquired that really wants you to have an encounter, and so you choose to discover the board that allows you to have access to encounters and pursues one of those, and that encounter gives you a side quest, and so on and so forth. There's definitely more efficient ways to play, but as you're exploring the game, it does a good job of holding your hand and guiding you to do anything. Also, you have those resource caps in your flowstone, so eventually you'll kind of know when you need to go home. You'll either get too cold and need the warmth, or you'll be kind of capped out on your resources and ready to spend them. So the game kind of has a natural progression, though as you keep playing as a group, you'll get more sharp about it and just a little more efficient in how you do things so that you can go a little more straight for the points. But now let's talk about it. What makes this game good? And what are its struggles, and who might this be good for and who might it not be good for? My first very quick note about this game has nothing to do with its gameplay and just has to do with the size. This game is massive. At our house, we have a table that was basically custom built for board game photography and probably a third deeper than most tables. And even for us, getting the 2-player game on the board was a massive table hog. This is a prototype, so I can't speak to exactly what the final specs will be, but I doubt it will get that much smaller, 20% smaller. So if you're someone with limited table space, you might need access to a different space to play this one, or it just might not be good for you and your group that way. But I think the most worthwhile discussion is to talk about gameplay itself and who this game might suit. I think it very much suits someone who wants a really competitive and crunchy game with light adventure floating in the background. While there's a massive map, a lot of what you're doing is very light. It's grabbing resources and managing those resources on your tracks and pushing up those tracks and trying to efficiently gun for points faster than your opponents. It's not a massive world building. There's no storybook. It's very, very light in flavor text. The story and the richness that you get is just kind of what your adventure is doing. You're like, I want a new ally and buddy, so I'm going to go out and forage for mushrooms and bring those back to the hot springs and get someone to go out with me. There's a story that underpins it, but it's not very specific, and you'll know who your friend is, but you won't have their background. You won't get a rich encounter between them or choices that you have to make in that department. Maybe a choice of which bonuses you get or which ally to bring along, but you're not doing things that are really rich in a story building way. And a lot of games do offer story building, but this isn't Sleeping Gods. This isn't a big open world in that way. It really is more of a soft Euro style game that has that kind of underpinning of objective and personhood in the background of it in a really nice way. And I think this is lovely. I think there's a lot of worker placement games that can feel really devoid of adventure for no reason. And I think the map is a really cool way around that. Because really, a lot of these spaces to me on the map feel like worker placement spaces, but the ones farther away just cost more of a warmth resource to get to. And so rather than just being like, here's an action space with 3 warmth cost in addition to getting what you want to do, you have to actually get there, and that resource could be gone if someone else takes it. So there is a sense of a more dynamic world, but really you're just like getting resources, having resources, and then funneling towards them something, just like many Euro games. And I think that's really charming and delightful, but it doesn't like bog you down. You don't get slowed down by story. It's a long enough game and not getting slowed down by story. So it can appeal to someone who is more of a Euro head who wants something that has the presence of something adventure-filled, or maybe someone who likes a bit of adventure, who wants to try something a little more crunchy. But I guess that point swings the other way and also speaks to who I think this wouldn't be good for. If you're looking for a really rich, immersive story experience, this isn't it. And I will say, because I saw the map before I agreed to do this game, I kind of expected a deeper story. And so I enjoyed the game, but I did feel like that fell flat in a couple of ways. I think my biggest pain point for sure, mentally as a player, but also thematically, was the flow tracks. And the reason for this is every time you go to the village, you have to give them the maximum resources you have to get the thing that you want. And to me, that is just either the strangest economy in the world, because items don't have cost associated with them. It's just however much pearl I have to give the shopkeeper. And so it's either the weirdest economy in the world, or like all of the villagers just actually grow to hate you as you become a braver and braver adventurer and charge you more for the same thing. Like, you got one house, it cost 1 wood. You want another house, that is now 2 wood. I'm so sorry. And you could call it demand, but the other player who hasn't done it yet, it's still 1 wood for. And so to me, that's just a little thematically clunky. It doesn't make it bad. It's just, it works very well in terms of a build-up. It's just not thematically there fully. But additionally, it mentally is a strange thing, because as you get stronger and stronger in the game, you need to do more. And that makes sense. There's no way in which you'll end this game resource poor. I've not seen it happen. Resources are really in abundance as long as people are discovering new areas. And so, yes, as you get stronger, you'll have more stuff. So it's not harder to get more resources to keep bumping up the flow track. But what it feels like is that your progress goes backwards. You have a little bit of a slap back every single time you boost up the track, because I'll have 3 wood and spend them all, and now my flow token's higher, so I'd have to spend more in order to do it again. And so it just feels like you're getting worse at the thing you're supposed to be getting better at. And that's odd as an adventurer, to feel like I'm doing worse as I keep going when I'm learning. And I know that that's not thematically what it is, and you're getting stronger on those tracks, but it feels like it because I have to do more to do the same thing. Because it's not better items you're upgrading to. It's not better houses. They're all just the same. And so I feel weaker at doing the same thing throughout the game. And that's a strange mishmash. It doesn't mean the game doesn't feel good or adventuring out doesn't feel good, but that's the kind of thematic weakness that I think is helpful to point out, and mental toll that you kind of have to like get used to in the game. I think most people playing this game won't think about that at all, though. It just gave me a chuckle to think about how the village might think that I'm a smug jerk, bold adventurer while trying to prove myself to the rest of the table. But truly, I don't think it will bog down the game. But for those looking for that really rich and meaningful world building here, it's just not here. Really, this game is a little Euro game with a lovely theme and world painted around it. That being said, the map and the world are a clever and beautiful choice, and I like it as an underpinning to a Euro game. While I might joke about and not understand why the villagers hate me so much as I grow braver and bolder throughout this process, I do like that I get to go back to the village and get an ally that helps me. I do like that I can buy items that boost me up. I'm glad that I can get stronger at the tavern. I'm assuming eating food and growing my warmth capacity. It feels good to do all those leveling up things, and I understand them as leveling up and can feel that baby sense of doing so, despite the fact that the story and the how and the exact mechanisms of it don't always align perfectly with what that is. And I really do love Euro games. And so building up engines and collecting resources and moving up tracks are all really lovely to me. And this game offers a really, really tight competition. I think after our first play, we really wanted to see just how efficient we could be in getting these points. But 6 points isn't a lot. And so keeping yourself just a step ahead of other people, or having peak efficiency at the end of the game where you can compound and get like a Floe point as well as like 2 half points in a single go, can be really, really impactful. And so I enjoy that crunchy little tight competition. And if someone enjoys a crunchy little tight competition, I think they might enjoy that kind of end game. I think it really does come down to those scoring objectives in the end. But that right there, in a nutshell, is as much as I could muster concisely in this video about Floe. And if it sounds like it's up your alley, if you want a little light game with a beautiful world underpinning it, then I encourage you to check it out on Kickstarter. I'll put the link in the description below. And if you have any other questions, particularly about the parts of the game that I didn't dive into as much, such as diving, and caves and anything else, feel free to throw comments at me. I'll be really active in the comments to answer any questions about my experience or the game itself. I'm more than happy to. And otherwise, I will see you all for the next video. Thanks for watching.